All right, so if we're gonna start cracking out our mold, you saw me pre-cut some lines in here. That helps this split super easy. So I can take a chisel and pop that off real easy. So I'm gonna take off the majority of this meat right here. This cedar works so well. Okay. What you'll see is that little bit right in there. So I'm going to do this from both sides and then punch out that little square right there and try and disconnect it from the mold. Once that's all taken out on all the ledges, I can actually crack it out. So I'll work here for a little while, trim this down, and then show you when it's ready. All right, as always, I get one spot that sticks, but I'm not gonna cut this one out because I got an idea for it. But that little spot up in the corner was sticking. I had to kind of grind into the corner a little bit. It's still kind of tight, but once I get it out, I can clean it all up. But everything else is loose. So this side is ready to come off. This is the scary part, because this stuff is pretty flexible. But if I can get this to round the corner, it'll be good. So these are all out. It's just that top is so tight. There we go. Come on. Working it slowly. Stressful. There it goes. Goodness gracious. That thing is still stuck in there. Ugh. Look at that. Never had that one before. It is so tight on that block. You gotta do this kind of delicately here. Gosh. Come on, little guy. And they can see where it's stuck. It's actually pulling, there it goes, the ply out right there. Oh, that little spot stuck up in that corner. But there's our rib structure. Nice and delicate and springy. So I'm gonna take a moment and clean up the inside of this parts, and then be able to put it back in the mold and clean up this nonsense that got stuck. So, let's get moving forward on that. All right, the top and the back plate are dry. All the purfling is in and secure. So now it's time to go shape all of these. I'm not gonna film a bunch of stuff like downstairs because right now this is gonna make a bunch of dust in all the carving. If I was doing it with traditional chisels, maybe. But right now we're gonna go downstairs and shape all of this and get all of this smoothed out. And once it's all contoured and done, I'll bring it back and show you guys some progress. You can see here in the background, there's our neck, looking good. I have a lot more profiling to do, but it's getting there. All right, here's where we're at. I've got the majority of the meat profiled off the back and the top. Top is right here, looking good. And so what I'm gonna actually do is go around and listen to these things, rub my fingers over them to find the high spots and take them down with a series of planes. Everything from small luthier planes, these things take itty bitty bites as you go around, to my scraper cards. So I'll take my little scrapers here and go through and take off anything I need to take off. So I'll clean up these edges
and the purfling. So I'll be sitting here for the next couple hours, easily. So doing all this, and then we can get to the final surfacing of these. Once we have the final surface of the top and the back, we can actually flip our attention over to how thick they need to be. So I'll show you guys obviously all of that process. Now, one thing that we do have to do before we do all the inside is I need to do the inlay that's actually going to go on the back. And I haven't determined if I want to put it on the bottom or the top. I go back and forth. I'm leaning towards the top right now just because of this beautiful kind of patterning. I think that'll be really lovely. So I need to do that and inset that inlay and flush it before using the inside as a reference to draw out and anything else. So let me get to scraping and cleaning this up. So I'll sit here like this for a very long time and clean up all this mess. So let's talk about the back. The back of this instrument is going to have a inlaid little stained glass window made out of mixed wood veneers. Now, originally I was going to put the window down at the bottom. And I know that could be covered up by a shoulder rest or anything else, but when it's on display I thought it'd be really beautiful. And this area is flatter and is more conducive to inlay than anywhere else, especially here. I did a very heavily inlaid instrument for my wife years ago, and putting inlay on a curve in compound places is quite crazy. Anyhow, so this would have been the optimal spot, but with the wood grain that was revealed in this lovely piece of mountain ash, I think that looks kind of odd. I love this shape up here, and so I think I'm going to put the window up top. Right? I think that'll look better and flow better with the natural grain of the wood. And so I'll have to do a little bit of kind of curving on here, but not a ton. So, but why a stained glass window? Well, there's this really cool story from Sitka, Alaska, at St. Peter's, this Episcopal church up there. And in 1899, they had a stained glass window when the church was built. And it took, apparently, as the lore goes, a year or so of waiting to get the window in, right? It had to be made and then shipped. So in late 1899 in December, they ended up getting the window, but it was the wrong window. And it had a Star of David in the center of the window. And so they ended up putting it in the church anyways. And so it's lived there and become this really kind of cool story of the community. And so at the request of Marcel, he talked about this being kind of an icon of the city, as well as a really kind of cool element to be there. But I think what I'm going to kind of capitalize on in this story is that their window came from somewhere else and was delivered to Sitka and installed there. So I do have some veneers from Sitka, or I could make some veneer pieces, but I think all the veneers in here are going to come from me, from my hometown of Georgetown, Kentucky. Now, I grew up in a military family, so I've moved around my whole life. But I've lived a long enough time here to kind of call this home. And so we'll say that. We're going to get some woods that I have stories about that can go in here. I have some walnut that I cut down from a friend's front yard. I have a pear tree from the Georgetown College campus. I have some local cherries and mahoganies. But I also have some pear wood from the tree in my front yard. So that'll be kind of my wood contribution to this project. I think that's kind of cool that just like the window is delivered from somewhere else, the woods for this are going to be from somewhere else. So I have some templates that I've cut out on my laser to figure out size. I want to make this as big as I can without making it look big, because the larger it is, the more detail I can get in the window. Now right now these just look like flower orange slice things, but it does have more detail that I've drawn in here. Every image of this window that I've seen has been from below or at an angle, And so I've had to kind of recreate and redraw elements of that digitally. And I don't have any film of that. You can trust me, I'm just using Illustrator, drawing it out by hand, scanning it back and forth. And I got the window fully rendered, and so I'll be using a laser to cut out some of these pieces. Now, and then we'll hand inlay it into the board. So let's go about selecting our woods. I got to figure out what colors I want to use for what parts of the window. And then we'll start assembling it and kind of stick it in there. All right, so here are all the pieces for the inlay that I'm working on. And I'm going to tell you, I've got a bunch of extra pieces because these little things squeeze between tweezers and then pop and fly off. That's the tiniest little piece. Anyhow, here's my basic window. And I'm going to put together the puzzle that I drew out and cut out. So we'll probably time lapse this because it'll take a little while. And if one of these goes ping, I can't be responsible for what I say. Just joking. All right, let's roll it and you can see this get put together here. I'm not happy with the walnut pieces. They're a little tiny, just from the amount of burn that came off of it. So I'm going to recut those and put those in, and then otherwise, we're close to done. All right, I've got the final little window done. Now, some of these pieces are still in there loose, so I'm going to tape it over. I do want a spot for a little bit of glue to get in there for this piece of Osage that I'll talk about in a bit. But I am loving how this little thing looks. It's going to be beautiful. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different species of wood in it. And this morning when I woke up, in between that awake and asleep time, I figured out what I'm going to do for that center little dot. And I think it's pretty dang cool. So let me get this all set, and then I got to cut that little dot out. And then we can inlay it into the back. All right, I've got my little window pretty much done. I'm missing the key component of that thing in the middle. Now, the original window has a Star of David in there. I don't think that I can put something in that small and keep it looking really clean. But I thought about maybe there's some sort of special material or some sort of story kind of piece of wood, because this instrument is made of a collection of stories. So what could I put in there from me or from this area or something about the project? And it kind of came to me this morning. So there is this really interesting kind of coincidence that runs through this project, and that is that my first real woodworking mentor professionally was a guy named Dennis Sitka that I kind of studied under and worked under at the Skills Development Center in Washington, D.C. And Dennis was a great guy to work with. He's super funny, quirky. I love him to pieces. And he gave me a great start in this world of woodworking. And so the name Sitka was kind of coincidental that I'm making this for Sitka, Alaska, out of Sitka spruce. And so I thought that was kind of cool. And then I had this thought in the morning. So Dennis, my mentor, gave me this. And it is a piece of mahogany, old piece, or mesquite. It's mesquite. Super dense. And he drew a star on it with these little lines coming off of it. And he cut this out on the scroll saw and handed it to me. And we were talking about tool usages and stuff. And I don't know if he even knows this, but I've kept this on my shelf, a bookshelf, for the past 20 years, 21 years, I don't know. And so I think I'm gonna slice off a piece of this star to become the star in the middle of there. So it's my piece of my Sitka as a gift to the Sitka Violin. So I'm gonna resaw this little piece of mesquite and put it in there. Let's see how it turns out. So now I got that little piece out. I can put the little star back in and it'll go back on my shelf. All right, so it's all glued up. And all I'm doing is a final scrape with a nice sharp scraper card over that inlay. Make sure it's all nice and crisp. Yeah, buddy. Where'd you see this thing? Check that out. Looking sharp. I'm in love with this thing, man. So that's all in there. Nice and cleaned up. This doesn't have any oil or anything on it, so those colors are really going to pop. So there's a bunch of woods in here that really are unique and kind of matter in good ways. There's some bloodwood. There's some mahogany, there's some pear, there's some Osage orange, walnut, maple, and mesquite. And when this is all done, we'll run through it, but I'll give you the quick little rundown. The walnut is from my good friend Daryl Kinster's front yard that I harvested years and years ago, even before I had kids. Maybe they were little. The pear tree is from my front yard. And it died when my kids were about 3 or 4, so I guess about 10 years ago. The Osage orange is actually from Collins, Mississippi, and it was from a fence post that was in my grandfather's farm, and it's been in our family for generations. The maple is local into Georgetown, off the campus of Georgetown College. The mahogany is actually local as well, or a board at least, that I've used many times over. And the mesquite, as we discussed before, is from my mentor, Dennis Sitka. And the cherry. Oh, cherry are these little, the round bits, the little oval egg-shaped thingies. Those are actually from wood from our college's library.
during a renovation. And so it's a little bit of everything in there, which I think is a beautiful thing.